Hey YouTube, in this video we'll be talking about the pros and cons of weight training. I'll start off with the pros. There's quite a few, and there's a reason why in the last half century there has been such a jump from just plyometric training to plyometric and weight training. And that's because the more muscles you have, up to a certain point obviously, the faster you're going to be. And this is purely because, especially in the first few steps out of the blocks, it's pure muscular contractions, which is why the ground contact times are so slow, and they start to get faster and faster as the race goes on. Because as the race goes on, you switch from pure muscle to just tendons. And if you really want to be able to produce a lot of power on the spring with the tendons, you need to have a lot of muscle. And in the gym, you're actually able to train both your muscles and your tendons, which will actually allow you to train not just your acceleration and your drive phase, but your top speed and maintenance and deceleration phase, which is why the gym is so important. Because most people's focus on the gym is always muscle, so that's easy to train, meaning it's really easy to get your 60-meter times lowered, because you just need to do a lot of squats and deadlifts and the times are going to drop. Make sure your core is strong, the times are going to drop. And work on tendons, same things but in a slightly different manner, and you're going to be able to train your tendons over a longer period than your muscles, obviously. And now you're actually going to be able to, your tendons are going to be able to withstand more force, which they can already withstand a lot more force than your muscles can even produce. But they're going to be able to withstand a lot more force and be more responsive to whatever force you're already giving them, to allow you to get faster anyway. Other than this, in the gym, when you put these two together, you get power. And power training is very important. It's usually done in a slow format. So this is like max effort squats, max effort deadlifts, and stuff like that. But as long as you understand how to use the gym, like there's a force production curve which actually shows what you need to train a specific thing. You got power on one side, speed on another side, and in between you've basically got speed and power, and it's like a little conversion as you try to get closer to just pure speed work. Heavy stuff in the gym and slightly lighter stuff. So like heavy stuff like the squats and the deadlifts, slightly lighter stuff would be like Olympic weightlifting. The heavy stuff works on power, the lighter stuff works on power and speed. And then as you get a little closer to your season and you kind of want to start to decrease the max effort stuff and focus more on the lighter stuff, the pure speed will just be plyometrics and actually sprinting. And this is how you'd convert whatever you've produced in the gym, the power work, towards speed. You start off with max effort stuff whilst also doing Olympic weightlifting. Then you drop the max effort stuff by a decent amount, focus more on Olympic weightlifting. And then after that, you start to decrease all of those and have less time in the gym, though maintain what you keep in the gym. This doesn't have to mean you completely remove all your days in the gym. You could just decrease the amount of volume you do in the gym, and then you focus more on the plyometrics. These benefits will obviously help you get much faster quite quickly, because it's just the start of the race is so important, and getting to speed is very important. Increasing your top speed can only really be done through three manners: better form, more power, and being able to hold what you have much better. These are the only real ways to increase your speed. And form can only be improved to a certain point. Whilst obviously no one's form is important, not even imperfect, not even Usain Bolt's was. The closer you get to perfect form, the harder and harder it becomes for you to reach it. So this is, after a while, it becomes a no-go, though it is the most viable and the smartest option you should go down. Tendon work and just like work holding that, again, it's not so much a no-go as much as it is for form, but what ends up happening is it just takes too long, and it's going to take you a while, and after a while you're going to start to see a lot slower results, and it's just not going to be as easy to train for speed after a while, and you're going to end up putting on too much muscle, training your tendons, and so that's also going to end up a no-go. But power training in the gym, really easy, fast results, and you can just keep going and just keep converting. Obviously plyometrics with the tendon stuff, not just in the gym, but obviously just plyometrics, that will help you, but again, slightly less results. But there's a reason why that's my second finger, not my third finger, because plyometrics literally just give you stronger tendons and speed. So if you're not going to work on form, plyometrics would be the way to go. But the reason why we do weight training is because you just get so much results in such a short period of time. It's almost cheating, because it's actually possible to go from just like a 12-13 second time. Actually, this is like weight training in this scenario would be more important for slower athletes, purely because they're most likely missing certain like metrics that you need to hit, like a certain body fat, a certain amount of muscle. So weight training is obviously important for them, but the closer you get to like 10 seconds and sub 10 seconds, form and plyometrics would just be the main focus. In fact, it's even possible to go in one season from something like 10.8 to 10.5 or around there, which is just from just plyometrics. So that should just go to show how important that is, whilst weight training can't actually give you that. It can help you with your starts, make you come out of the blocks faster and all of that. But if you really want to get faster, tendons and your form is really the only manner. Because whilst I did say in the last half century, a lot of work has been put towards weight training. Before that, it was literally just sprinting and plyometrics, and that worked so well for a reason, because it's one of the best models to focus on. If muscle wasn't a factor that needed to be equated for, we would never have included weight training, because there wouldn't have been a need to. But because it is a factor and it's really important at the start, and it can also help you increase your top speed, it's another avenue you can go down, it's included. Another reason why weight training is a bit iffy if you're going to do it, and you have to be careful how you do it, is because of fatigue. There's a couple of different things that can fatigue you for a sprint session. These is obviously a sprint session. Plyometrics and weight training. Too much of any of these will completely fatigue you, and doing all of these in one day with too high of a quantity will fatigue the rest. You want all of these to have as high of a quality as possible. The weight training, you can kind of slack on the quality, do a bit more quantity, but you want especially the sprinting and the plyometrics to have as high of a quality as possible, and they're the main focus in your training. You shouldn't let anything else affect these. But the problem is, doing weight training is, depending on what you're doing, even actually not really so much depending on what you're doing, just doing it is extremely taxing on your central nervous system, your CNS. And you want your CNS to get taxed from sprint training and plyometrics themselves, not so much from weight training. If this was the off season, you can get away with it a bit more, but especially as we get closer to preseason and in season, you want your CNS to be fresh, so it's able to listen to you trying to teach your body to sprint in the right way, listen, and it's able to actually compute the form you're trying to get and landing on the ground the way you want to whilst you're doing your plyometrics and actually sprinting. And weight training can, if you've ever been drunk, it's kind of like you want to move your finger this much, but you only move this much. It's very annoying, and you're not really so much in control. You won't actually notice it whilst you're training, but your body can feel it, and it's aware, and it doesn't like it. Other than that, a lot of the training in the weight room, it trains your slow twitch muscles and slow twitch muscle fibers, which is obviously not the way we want to go. Most of the mass you see on people is actually slow twitch. Because think about when you do a maximal squat or deadlift, you don't just go from the start position and to the finish position just like that. You take time. It takes seconds. You might be under tension for a whole 1 or 2 seconds compared to being on tension for milliseconds whilst you're sprinting or you're doing plyometrics. And obviously this isn't too big of a problem, because slow twitch muscle fibers are still important. And a good thing is, in the weight room, you can actually train your fast twitch muscle fibers just by decreasing the weight. But it's obviously still a big problem that should be focused on, which is why you'll hear a lot of coaches on the internet and elsewhere in real life as well. They'll say how you've got all these different people who spend like hours in the weight room and they're jacked and everything. And you look at them, you're like, yeah, that guy's he told me he's a sprinter. He probably runs like sub 11 seconds. And then he goes on the track and he runs 12 seconds. It's because they spent too much time in the weight room, neglected everything else, and they've developed essentially too much slow twitch muscle fibers. And they've got a lot of power, but it hasn't been converted to speed. So they're not, and also even if it was converted to speed, they're overstriding. They're not landing properly, so a lot of that power gets dispersed, unfortunately, because they spent so much focus in the gym instead of actually on the track and doing the work, which has made them slow, which is obviously not what they or their coach would want. And if you're doing that, it's not what you would want, which is why you should limit what you do in the weight room and make sure you focus on training your fast twitch muscle fibers. There's actually a quite easy way to tell whether you're training right as an athlete, especially as a sprinter. If you look weird when you're training, or you get a lot of looks in the gym when you're training, most likely you're doing it right. If you're doing squats and deadlifts, maximal heavy, no one's probably going to look at you other than like, oh wow, that's a lot of weight. But if you're doing Olympic weightlifting, you're doing box squats as fast as possible, even timed. You're doing like calf raises on a leg press as fast as possible, maybe even timed again. Now you're going to start to get some looks, and now you're actually going to be starting to train like an athlete. If you're doing a lot of core work and it just looks really weird, you're training like an athlete. You want to be doing more stuff like that in the weight room, because getting a strong core, getting a strong post and anterior chain is extremely important, because if any of these is weak, it can affect you on a track. But I think the main problem why people like go to the weight room, go to gym, and then they're slow is because not only are they training wrong in the weight room, but it's also because they've missed the whole point of how to train in the gym. Because gym was popularized by like people like Arnold Schwarzenegger for bodybuilding. A lot of people in the gym train for bodybuilding, and they just train the muscles that are visible, the main ones that you can actually see. But athletes, the visible muscles aren't the ones we want to train. We want to train mostly what you can't see. For example, I highly doubt you're ever going to go to a gym and you're going to see a guy and you're going to look at him, you're going to look at his waist and be like, damn, he has some massive hips, or damn, his knees look strong, or wow, those ankles are very, very, okay, you might say those ankles are very mobile if he's doing a squat, for example, but you most likely you're not gonna say that. And even if you was thinking it, you wouldn't be able to get the same reaction from you than if he had massive biceps or triceps or quads or hamstrings or even calves, because those are the muscles that are mainly visible. But athletes, we don't really care so much about the visible muscles or just the visible muscles, but we care more about the tendons, mobility in joints, and being strong in a full range of motion in these muscles. And it's unfortunate, but kind of fortunate too, but these types of training don't actually make our muscles grow to extremely massive bodybuilder sizes. They make them go to leaner formats that are actually useful towards our sport. Not just because you can say not that these muscles are like this because we actually sprint, or which has made the muscles more compact, but it's also because we train differently, so they're not as big. If we were to make our muscles that big and it was to keep them in the same format, we probably ought to like cut off like 1 or 2 seconds off of our time. But I'm not sure if that would even be physically possible, and considering it probably isn't, and the way we are working now, it works, then there's no need to change it. But if you do put a lot of work in the gym, focusing mainly on the major muscle groups, make sure you focus on what you can't see as well, because what you can't see tends to be the thing that has the biggest contribution towards your time, not what you can see. Obviously your quads have a great, very, very big, and your hamstrings, very big contribution towards sprinting, not just in the block spot once you're upright too. But if you train these too much, it's really easy to end up becoming quad dominant and just using your hamstrings to pull you back once you overstride, because you're quad dominant, instead of training your hips. A lot of people don't train their hips in the gym, but as sprinters, 2 of the biggest, most important muscles that we could be training should be your hips and your glutes, because these are the 2 muscles that are actually responsible for lifting up your knee. Once you use the correct form for lifting up your knee and placing it back down on the floor without overstriding. If these are weak, you're not going to be able to sprint properly. And if you don't even know how they feel when they're being activated, you won't be using them when you're sprinting. If you like my video, like the video, let me know in the comments section below. Check the description, because anything I forget to say in the video, I always put in the description. And if you like my content, subscribe. Helps the channel out a lot. I post every 2 days at 1 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. If you don't know when that is, just hit the bell and then you'll be notified instantly.